So 80% of marine litter comes from land. So we kind of want to prevent it getting out to sea and onto the beaches.
Catching people's very difficult.
I just feel like the people of Glasgow, they don't give a
and people have got used to the council doing all the cleaning, and now they're not doing it.
Glasgow, or Glasgow as it is pronounced in Scottish Gaelic, is the most populous city in Scotland and the fourth most populous city in the United Kingdom. Not only that, but Glasgow is also the 27th largest city by population in Europe, the home to nearly 1.7 million people. Glasgow is situated on the River Clyde in the country's west central lowlands. It is the fifth most visited city in the United Kingdom. Famous for its architecture, the world-friendliest city, whiskey, shipbuilding, the green city, no sunshine, and many more. But there is a darker side to the world-friendliest city. Glasgow streets have been turned into a war zone of litter with refuse and rubbish being dumped on the streets, and with big events happening frequently. Glasgow would need to get a grip of itself. With respect to the situation in Scotland only, 250 million items are dropped visibly every year as litter, alongside 26,000 tons of waste materials being fly-tipped, which would result in a lot of money being spent on cleaning up this waste instead of being put into the economic system. In accordance with the research of 2013 Zero Waste Scotland, the cost incurred in cleaning up waste and fly tipping is more than £53 million of public money. It is revealed that littering and fly tipping is not the victimless crime, and estimations have shown that littering and fly tipping cost more than £11 million to council taxpayer in clearing it from the land. According to studies, littering and fly tipping is a criminal offence, and anyone who is caught dropping or throwing away an item in public places is categorized as conducting an act of littering, and there are penalties for guilty people for this offence. As per the report, there is no demographic or group that can be regarded as litterers, and more than half of the population living in Scotland have admitted that they have littered at some point, either accidentally or deliberately. The major question remains, what are the causes of littering and fly tipping? Carelessness and laziness have rooted a major cause of fly tipping. People have developed the habit of being unwilling to throw their litter in trash bin. Instead, they prefer throwing the trash wherever place they want, either on the roadside, parks, or at the bay.
As the city prepares for COP26, this report investigates the issue of littering and fly tipping, which is one of the easiest ways for people to make a difference to their society and environment. My name is Zainab Arowoshere, and I am the reporter looking into this issue that is affecting Glasgow. Environmental agencies in Scotland are playing their part in supporting organisations that have pledged to remove litter and stop fly tipping in Glasgow. During my chat with the Policy and Communication Officer of Environmental Protection Scotland, John Byrnoth, and Heather McLaughlin of Keep Scotland Beautiful, they had this to say about the causes of littering and fly tipping.
Generally, I think it's could be a combination of things. It could be a lack of education. It could be a lack of pride by people, because one of the main sort of barriers to overcoming litter problems and fly tipping is public education. Just trying to get across to the people that this is unacceptable and it damages the environment for other people that they live in. There's also the fact that enforcement itself, you can be fined £80 for you can be fined £80 if you're caught littering, for example, and there's much stiffer penalties for fly tipping, depending how serious it is. I mean, you could be jailed for 12 months, put in prison.
Yeah, so I think the response to that is you're never going to get a satisfying answer, unfortunately. I think we know we need to change behaviours, and what we want to do ultimately is make people really proud of where they live, connected to where they live, so that they want to not litter because they want to protect their area. So there's sort of three things that we look at to try and change these behaviours for good, and that is making sure people understand what's expected of them, so they've got the information, bin it, take it home. They've got the right infrastructure in place, so whether that's bins or legislation, by no means am I saying we need lots more bins, because that's not always the answer. And then finally, for the minority that needs this, we need to make sure there's an enforcement model in place that obviously the stick approach over the carrot, but make sure people are nudged to bin their litter.
Thing is, catching people is one thing, and there's been a lot of resource cuts to places like Glasgow City Council, for example, and other local authorities. We had the austerity about 10 years ago. Now we've got COVID, which is meaning although there's a lot of staff still trying to check this problem and deal with this problem, actually catching people is very difficult. So it's maybe people think they can get away with it, and if you think you can get away with it, people will do something. But I think there needs to be more education, definitely, and encouraging people to realize what it does, the damage it does to the environment is a huge issue.
There are a lot of things that can cause one to drop litter or fly tip, but all these are little things that can and need to be avoided. Small groups and individuals in Glasgow have taken this upon themselves to pick up these litters, as the city is gradually becoming a mess to the environment, and it is a major symptom which reflects a throwaway culture and poor waste management systems.
I got involved in litter picking around about March this year. Basically I saw what the cleanup guy was doing on social media, and I saw him really working hard, going out to these really bad litter spots and just tackling it, and he was basically, I could see he was trying to raise the profile of the issue, and he was on the radio, and I emailed him and I was like, how can I help?
Months ago, I had an interview with the Glasgow Cleanup, an anonymous Glaswegian who organizes litter pickup in Glasgow.
I'm just a person that lives in Glasgow, I saw that there was litter out. I felt that somebody had to come out and clean it, so here I am just coming out and picking it up, Previously, I was just looking out for areas that had lots of litter or places that I would go regularly and I wanted them to be, litter picked. I was just doing it on my own for several months, and I was posting some stuff on Instagram, and then it started gaining some traction, and so after that, some people were coming out and helping me.
Fast forward to this day, I contacted him to know how this litter pickup mission is going, but his response was not the best.
Hi, how's it going? I've kind of let the litter picking thing and the whole environmental thing just go by the wayside at the moment, just for multiple reasons, mostly because I just feel like the people of Glasgow, they don't give a shit, and also because the council give even less of a shit, and so I've just had to take a wee break from it, to be honest. I may return, I may not.
Kings Park is in the south side of Glasgow and was mainly covered with litter, but with the help of volunteers and an organization called the Friends of Kings Park, they have been able to maintain and keep the park tidy for visitors, and hope visitors try not to litter but keep the park clean always.
I'm David, I'm Chair of Friends of Kings Park here on the south side of Glasgow. Our focus is on Kings Park. We've got 68 acres in the park, and we've been working hard to keep the park looking beautiful and litter free for the last 3 years.
My name is Kevin Brown. I'm a member of the Committee of the Friends of Kings Park in South Glasgow, and I head up, among my main responsibilities, is the litter picking crew. I moved here in 2018. By the way, I'm a Canadian, and I started individually picking up rubbish because the place was such a mess. But now we have forged a very effective community organization which does this every Saturday morning for an hour and a half. And we're able to keep the park quite clean and presentable.
Friends of Kings Park are a group of local volunteers that come from actually all parts of Glasgow, mainly on the south side, and they're all dedicated to making Kings Park look beautiful, and that includes gardening, that includes litter picking too.
Litter picking is not a job that should be done by the Glasgow City Council. Neither is it a job that should be done by the people. But what are the Glasgow City Council doing about this major problem that needs to be solved before it gets out of hand?
Well, clearly they're doing what they can with the sort of powers they've got. Glasgow's got 358,000 kilometres of streets to clear and keep tidy. They've got 56 different 5,000 litter bins alone in 56 neighbourhoods. and over 1,000 square kilometres of public spaces, including parks, which, as you know, have been massively busy because people are now having to meet outside recently, and as groups. And the safest place to meet with COVID is if you're meeting from outside your household recently, has been to go to the park, Queen's Park or Kelvin Grove Park, and meet outside.
We've got seemingly more litter, less cleaning, and people have got used to the council doing all the cleaning, and now they're not doing it. So that's a problem,
Yeah, so the main problem is people want the council to take over the job. They don't want to do the job.
No, they don't. Well, there shouldn't be a job to do in the first place. That's the thing. The council can pick up the bins, they can collect the bins, but as for picking up litter, there shouldn't be any litter. It's just a waste of money. Why would you spend money on picking up litter when people should not be dropping litter? It's like, it's not solving the problem. It's just like, it's just spending money on the symptoms, not the cause. And people don't understand that there's not an infinite amount of money to spend on picking up litter, and there's better things to spend the money on. So in some ways, the council could definitely do more. They could do better.
So I think the council has got the powers there. It's just whether they have got the resources and whether they need more money or they need to plough more resources into dealing with this, because city council, they're all financially, they're facing very difficult situations, local authorities and councils, and the resources are very stretched, so they might have to cut back on one area and that becomes a problem. There might be a park, they might have to think, well, this has been okay, so we'll cut back on this, but then that causes the problem to get worse because they're not enforcing it. People are seeing a general decline in the area and how it looks. So I think, there is a problem. I think they just need to either get more funding, there needs to be more awareness, more campaigns.
To get this clear, I decided to contact the City Council about how they are working to tackle this major problem that is gradually affecting the environment and our society in all. I tried all possible best to reach out through emails, phone calls, and through their website. All my effort to get the Glasgow City Council on this project was not successful.
Glasgow Council literally can't do it. Therefore, we can either let it, just watch it accumulate, or we can go out as a community, as Friends of Kings Park is doing, and do it ourselves. Some amazing side benefits to this include that we're forging a community built around keeping this park, making this park everything it can be. We all know each other. We make connections in all kinds of areas. It's kind of like a syndicalist park, It's now a park belonging to the people. Yeah.
Increase in littering is becoming one of the serious problems for innocent animals who are becoming its victim every day. It is estimated that more than 1 million animals die annually due to littering and fly tipping, causing them to either get trapped in improper discarded trash or ingesting the trash. Among all the litter types, littering or fly tipping plastic is one of the most commonly killers of marine life and land animals. As per the rough estimate, more than 100,000 fishes, turtles, whales, and other marine animals die globally as a result of being entangled in or digesting plastic litter. According to research by Keep Scotland Beautiful, it is estimated that up to 12.7 million tons of plastic gets into the sea each year. To tackle this, Keep Scotland Beautiful started a project called Upstream Battle, which focuses on changing littering behaviour to prevent marine litter at a source along the River Clyde.
And then the other campaign we've got running is Upstream Battle. So that's a campaign looking at marine litter across the Clyde Valley, so the Clyde and all its tributaries as well. And that campaign really is trying to raise awareness of the source to sea pathway. So 80% of marine litter comes from land, so we kind of want to prevent it getting out to sea and onto the beaches by tackling it inland. So we've worked to raise awareness of that across Glasgow and other local authorities in the area. We've gathered data on the type of litter sitting around waterways, and then we've inspired action through community groups, individuals, businesses and schools to tackle this problem.
I had a chat with John Molyneux, who is a Scottish Green Councillor for Pollock Shields at the south side of Glasgow. One of John's main agenda as a Glasgow Green Councillor would be to help tackle littering as one of the main issues in Glasgow.
I really got involved in terms of wanting to be a local councillor because I've always been quite motivated, heavily motivated by local issues, of which littering and waste management and recycling are, really, one of the top priorities for local people. Often, it's one of the first things that they expect their local authorities to be on top of. And because I think, in terms of my green agenda, because I think there's a whole lot we could do that's so much better in terms of not just being a throwaway culture, but actually, shifting from that throwaway society to a zero waste ethos, which means we don't see anything as waste. We see everything as an asset that can be reused or repurposed or recycled and made into something that can deliver a benefit to our communities. So that's really what one of the big things that drives me in this area.
While filming this documentary, I realized plastic bottles, plastic bags, cans, and mostly cigarette butts were my mostly filmed litter on the streets of Glasgow. The government introduced a charge for single-use carrier bags from 20th of October 2014. It is estimated to have reduced carrier bag use by 80% in its first year of operation up until the 31st of May 2021.
And it's not just about going back to how things were, it's thinking about, well, how do we do things differently going forward? Lots of innovation. Till receipts is a good case in point. Till receipts when people went to the shop would be something that might commonly end up as litter, because people would do the shopping, get the receipt, and then throw it away. I get online receipts from a number of retailers, or I say I don't need to take the receipts. There's small things where people can change how things work to reduce litter. Coffee cups is another one. We're seeing reusable coffee cups. The carrier bags, what was the 5 pence charge, and it's now the 10 pence charge on carrier bags. Again, that's massively reduced the number of single-use carrier bags that have been given out, and therefore the amount that end up as litter. So there's actually quite simple things that we can do that have a big impact. We need to really focus on those things. We need to focus on preventing litter.
And it's really interesting to see the trends. People talk about plastics quite a lot, and yes, they were very high on the list, but by no means was it exclusively plastics. I think we can quite often fall into a trend of demonizing plastics and kind of forgetting about the other litter found. And what the other interesting thing that we saw was that the problems varied massively between communities. So some communities upstream or near rivers with maybe issues with sewage, there was a lot of wet wipes, cotton buds found, whereas other communities that were maybe in more leisure areas, I know in South Lanarkshire, the Friends of the Calder found a lot of broken glass, cans, bottles. So the trends vary massively, but our top 5 would be, plastic bottles, plastic packaging, wet wipes is very high, and cigarette butts.
Just generally, people have to look at what they can do, and I think governments need to be more restrictive in also things like imports from countries like China. We're all buying Amazon, aren't we now? But what's the plastics that go into that? How are they being made? There seems to be a tremendous amount of plastic waste as well. We're talking about litter, but that's all connected with that. I mean, bags that are used to wrap bags, basically. And I think we need to cut far more down on plastic waste, which will reduce emissions from industrial output as well.
With various organizations and individuals arranging litter pickup in the city, is it safe to say this is the solution to littering and fly tipping problem in Glasgow? And I am very much curious to know if things has changed so far.
No, nothing's changing. Nothing's changing. It's the same culture. Nothing's changing. So we've started a petition for schools to make it part of their curriculum, and the street clean, very few people turn up to that. No one's interested because they don't think it's their job. So there's a whole culture that needs to change, and that's not going to change quickly. We're going to have to. This is going to take generations to change this. Other countries it's taken decades, where they have cleaned up there's been, like, Singapore was dirty, they cleaned it up. It took decades, and it took a lot of money. Whereas in this country, there needs to be a strategy. Nothing's going to change until that happens. So the litter will just keep coming. We've cleaned up this park today, but give it a month, it'll be back. If no one's out, and you can't rely on a small group of volunteers to keep cleaning up. It doesn't work. So yeah, we need to focus on the culture, changing the behaviour, and it's not just a case of the council needing to clean up more. It's more a case of people making less mess.
Here is what I think needs to be done. And I am from out with Scotland. I am a Canadian. And I'm well traveled. And in Canada, you wouldn't see this. It doesn't happen. People, generally speaking, like 98% of them, know better. And they put things in the bin. That's the first point. And I find Scotland disappointing. I can say this because I live here and I'm invested in the community, but compared to Portugal, where I traveled recently, the place is a tip. There's no reason for it. What Glasgow Council, what the Scottish government needs to do, as a matter of urgency, I wrote my first letter a couple of years ago, is to pass a bottle deposit scheme law immediately so that if you buy this, you're going to pay 10 pence for it, for the bottle.
As a matter of urgency, Keep Scotland Beautiful recently stated that Scotland is facing a potential litter emergency, which has made Callum Edmonds of Clean Up Glasgow and his team put up a petition for the Scottish Government to introduce awareness and practical experience of litter picking and waste separation in the school curriculum.
We've sort of declared that there's a looming litter emergency, and it might seem trivial, you know, with the broader scheme of things in terms of the climate change and biodiversity loss. But for me, littering is such an easy thing to fix, or it should be such an easy thing to fix. The behaviour itself is very, very simple. You know, you don't need to understand any science, you don't need to put in any extra effort. It's just carrying whatever you were already carrying a little bit further potentially. So for me, if we can't get people to stop littering, how can we expect them to, you know, maybe change their energy system, to cycle instead of drive, to plant more trees, to not mow their lawn? You know, how can we expect people to do all those things if we can't get them to just carry that crisp packet an extra 100 meters? So I think in terms of impact and in terms of how simple it should be to tackle the litter problem we're facing is really, really severe.
Meanwhile, learning for sustainability is being recognized by the Scottish Government, and there is a huge chance for a curriculum in schools which could include litter picking and waste separation. We have seen such an approach being followed in Japan, so why can't it be practiced in Scotland? This would only take about 15 to 20 minutes a day, which means if students are responsible for littering and fly tipping, they would be less likely to make it in the first place, and this would make them show respect to the surroundings.
That's brilliant. That is brilliant, you know, because a lot of what we have, obviously is underage drinking and things in the park. And so we're always picking up Buckfast and vodka and all of this. And I think that's brilliant, brilliant. Oh, I can't wait to sign this petition and share it.
Not that many people sign the petitions. For example, you'll get a petition on something to do with maybe, you know, a bigger high profile issue, rape, and the others to do with firearms. And these are more issues that are more of concern to people. They get thousands of signatures. Or if you look at the UK Parliament, other issues like COVID or immigration will get hundreds of thousands of signatures. Litter, 10,000 signatures. So it's not high up on people's priorities, and you can kind of understand that.
I find there's a lot of extraordinary ignorance. The reason I kept this little prop, very often in my travels picking up, I'll find bottles like this that are full of liquid or half full, lid back on. That's a crime against the environment that will last for 1,000 years. That takes water out of the ecosphere. I can't believe it, you know. They won't go to the bin with their rubbish, but they'll take the trouble to put the lid back on.
Things like that are very good, but you know, why should it be down to young people? You know, why shouldn't it be older people, all generations as well, to do this? I mean, why should the young people have to go out with their families and litter pick on a Sunday? You know, it's a great thing for them to do, but why should they have to do it? They shouldn't have to do it in the first place, really. So, you know, the public education needs to go hand in hand with enforcement and having the staff to enforce it, having the resources to do that.
the topic of litter needs to be taught in schools. And we do think the easiest way to sort of demonstrate to kids that they have responsibilities to get them out, whether that's within the school gates or out with the school gates in their wider community. I think it is really important for kids to see the impact of littering, and if they drop it, they have to go out and pick it up. It's not going to be someone else's responsibility. So yeah, our education team definitely supports that. And to get a green flag as part of the Eco Schools Green Flag scheme, each school has to tackle litter, and yeah, the easiest way to do that is litter picks. But we'd also then encourage schools to sort of encourage pupils to design posters, to put up locally to encourage responsible behaviour from the wider community, and sort of looking at what litter is found, so they can really sort of think about solutions that way too.
The part of that is bringing people into the nature more and more, like young kids, take them out and give them that appreciation. So I think, as well as getting the cleaning schedule in schools, that it should also be far more groups going with young children. I mean, the problem is it's probably got a lot harder with child protection. I think years ago there used to be a lot more groups that would be able to take children out, and then there were scandals and basically, child abuse. And now it's a lot harder for and you've got to protect children. There's no getting around that. But they shouldn't be missing out on these opportunities to enjoy nature.
I mean, strengthening education and people's understanding around these issues is really vital. There has been good work in terms of bringing climate and environmental awareness into the curriculum. It can still go further. There's a campaign called Teach the Future Scotland, which has been doing some great work about again making sure that what children are taught in schools is the up-to-date climate emergency scenarios that we have. There's been a little bit of controversy recently that there was an examination question used in Scotland, or a piece of coursework by the Scottish Qualifications Authority, which was asking people to consider what were the positive impacts of climate change. And it was Greens that said, well, that's not the right question to be asking. We should not in any way, shape or form be trying to suggest to people growing up that there are benefits to climate change, because there aren't. There globally, it's only going to make us poorer. It's only going to put people's lives at risk. It's going to tear families and communities apart. There are the positives. There are not positives to climate change. We have to recognise it's an emergency, and we have to make sure that everyone, from young or old, understands that, and that we're supported to make the changes that we need.
It is the duty of the citizens and business to dispose waste in a responsible manner. The program of Recycle for Scotland tends to provide the guidance on how to use, reduce, recycle and use the waste in an efficient manner. As we all know, the Climate Change Summit is a very big event coming up in Glasgow this November. It will be very nice for every citizen to make sure their surroundings are looking good, as we will be sharing it with delegates from all over the world, and adapt to always keep it clean.
I mean, just to be aware, especially in this year of COP26, that look after other people, and be aware that other people have to share the environment with you, and do not throw away waste. Try to recycle where you can, and just be aware that this is our environment. We've all got to share this environment, and we need to live together and enjoy it.
To clean the litter from the streets and the public place of Glasgow is the duty of the local authorities and statutory, such as the Network Rail, Scottish Canals, schools, colleges and universities, as developed by the Environmental Protection Act. To overcome the problem of lack of knowledge about littering and fly tipping, Zero Waste Scotland has published an online resource containing advice, case studies, expertise and communication resources for helping societies and businesses to understand litter prevention. This online resource was published at the Litter Knowledge Network, acted as the platform of spreading information and news. Nonetheless, litter picking shouldn't be down to non-profit organizations and individuals that does not like to see their surroundings dirty, which comes down to the responsibilities of all citizens and individuals to try as much as possible to make use of the facilities that have been provided by the government and dispose used litter and refuse in the right places.